Let's see the brush settings in the options bar. The new thing on the options bar is blending mode. This is the painting mode that we can apply on the image while painting. Different modes have different purposes and effect on the different colors on the image. Let's have a quick look at some of the popular and widely used modes to understand it. Here we have a color spectrum image. Let's select a red color as foreground color. Now from the brush presets, select the basic soft rounded brush and draw a straight vertical line on the image. This seems normal. Now go to mode drop down and click on the next option, that is dissolve. Create a line next to the previous line. You will find a sharp noise or dither pattern on the edges of the line as the edges have transparency. Now go to multiply mode and draw a new line. Here you will find an unusual stroke. Though we have selected the red color, it changes to a different dark color, especially in blue and green colors. Now go to screen mode and draw a new line. Here again you will find different colors in blue and green colors, but it will not paint in the same red color or around red color shades like orange or pink. Here each mode has its own calculations to work with different color combinations and also have different effects. You can quickly change the mode with Shift and plus or minus keys on the keyboard, or just press and hold the Shift key and right click with the mouse. We will discuss the blending modes in detail while discussing the layer blending modes. Reset the mode to normal for now. Revert the image to its starting level. This will undo all the changes we did till its open stage. The next two and very complicated terms are opacity and flow. First, set the brush size around 100 pixels. First, let the opacity to 100% and set the flow to 25%. Now, draw an overlapping curve on the image. You see that while you are overlapping the curve, it becomes darker. The more you overlap the curve, the darker color you will get. Now set the flow to 100% and opacity to 25%. Draw a new curve the same way on the new area. This time overlapping the curve doesn't get darker when you overlap the curve. Release your mouse and paint again on the curve. You will get the darker shade on overlapping areas. Repeat the process a couple of more times. On the first trial, we can see the overlapping effects on a single try, whereas in the second try, we need to do it as a couple of times. So the flow control is more effective than the opacity. While you are creating effects like shading, we should work with flow. This will gradually add opacity on overlapping on a single try. When we want uniform transparency, we should work with opacity. It will add uniform transparency in a single try. Undo the changes and set opacity to 100%. The button besides the opacity and the second last button are very useful when you have a graphic pen attached to your computer. The graphic pen has a very important property of pressure which is not available with a mouse. The pen pressure is measured by Photoshop and then converted to properties like opacity and size. Over here, the button besides the opacity applies the pen pressure to transparency. In case of light pressure, there will be more transparent ink, and when you have higher pressure, the stroke will be more opaque. Whereas the second last button will apply the pen pressure to size. Greater the pressure, the bigger the brush size would be. Lower the pressure, the smaller the brush size. Turning both the options on will set the brush size to smaller and transparent on low pressure and bigger and opaque on high pressure. Turn off both the options for now and revert the document. The button besides the flow is to activate the airbrush. Set the flow to 25% again. Draw a curve with pauses at some places. You will find that the airbrush keeps releasing the ink constantly. So when you pause, you will find a dark color spot. Set the flow to 100% and turn off the airbrush mode. The next option is smoothing. This option adds smoothness to your curve. Let us draw a curve with 0% smoothing. Now set the smoothing to 100% and draw the same curve on the right side. You will find that the right curve has more smoothness than the left one. Adding smoothness will slow down your brush. You can see a thin line after the brush point. This will guide you to draw a smooth curve. If you don't see the line, go to Edit, Preferences, Cursor. Select the checkbox of Show Brush Leash option. You can also change the color if you want to. You need to practice a little to work with the smoothing option. We have 4 more options with smoothing. Click on the gear icon. The second option of Stroke Catch-up will let the stroke reach to the mouse pointer when you pause your mouse. If you deselect this option, you will see that when you pause your mouse movement, it will also stop generating the stroke as you start moving your mouse. It will create a smooth curve in the new direction of mouse movement. The next option of Catch up on stroke end will complete the stroke to your mouse pointer position. When you release your left mouse button, you can see that as soon as I release the mouse button, it will create a straight line between the point it stopped and the mouse pointer position. The first option of pulled string mode will give you a circular range so that you can set the stroke direction as you want. After you start painting, you can decide where to go and pull the mouse to the desired direction. Smaller the smoothing, the smaller the circle will be. The last option of Adjust for Zoom will set the smoothness lower when you work in a zoomed in area and increase the smoothness when you work in zoomed out area. It will be consistent when you deselect it. Let's revert the changes for the new beautiful option. The last button of Symmetry is a very creative tool. You can create freehand type strokes with this. Select the first option of vertical. You can rotate the axis at the desired angle. You just need to draw any of the two sides. It will replicate and flip the stroke on the other side as you draw. We have different options available in the drop down. When you select any of the options, it will give you an option to transform the axis. You can also scale it the way you want. Different options give you different kinds of symmetry. At the options bar, we have an option for warping the axis. Depending on the warping you have applied, the new design will be created on that basis. If you want to change the transformation, just select the Transform Symmetry option. You can change the axis the way you want. You can also hide the Symmetry option to avoid the red axis. The last two options of Radial and Mandala are dynamic symmetrical tools and will ask for the segments you want before starting. Select the Mandala option, set the segment count to 8 and press OK. Just start drawing the stroke and you realize that you don't have to be creative to create a design like this. Draw curves as you like. Also draw with the different colors. Either you can draw a curve or create straight lines for a design. You can select different brushes too. Try selecting different modes while drawing the curves. Now let's talk about relative questions. So the first question is, what is the difference between flow and opacity? Flow will keep releasing the ink with specified flow rate and add the ink on overlapping the stroke itself on a single try, while opacity will not release the ink again on the stroke itself on a single try. You need to try a couple of more times to increase the opacity of painted areas. The second question is, what are brush blend modes? So blend modes are different options having their own calculations to work with different color combinations. And the last question, is it necessary to have a graphic pen for Photoshop? Okay, so now it's not necessary and you can perform most of the options without it, but the graphic pen helps you control the brush size and transparency with the pen pressure without manually changing it. So there is a bit of additional advantage if you are more creative and having more artistic approach, the pen will certainly help you.